Right. Looks good. So, welcome, guys. We've got part 3 for this sales follow-up series this month. I'm excited to hear the feedback at the end of the month and see if this whole monthly theme thing is valuable. We've gotten great comments so far, so hopefully we wind up really having something that's a workable skill set for you at the end of the month that you can implement. So I'm just going to pop in, and so far this month, we started off with setting up your sales follow-up playbook, and you can access all of these past webinars on our site. That's BN.Digital. So if you weren't able to catch these, you can just pop on and you browse those at your convenience. And then last week, we focused on the seller's experience and follow-up tactics. And today we're going to be talking about adding value and building trust as part of your sales follow-up strategy, actionable tips for what to do along your funnel along the course of the conversation. And then we'll close out next week with sales engagement pros and cons by channel, maybe some tips and tactics for each channel, things that I like that I've seen working with our agency and with all of the clients who we have, and just the general network of business brokers and intermediaries and fund list sponsors and buyout and the whole universe of deal origination and deal acquisition. We work with all of them, so we get to see some pretty interesting stuff along the way. So quick recap of session 1, we went through your playbook, looked something like this. Again, just go back to the video if you haven't had a chance to watch that, but really setting up your sales follow-up and separating that from marketing follow-up, right? So what is your sales engagement going to be for a qualified prospect once they come into your funnel? Last week, session 2, we talked about trying to build your follow-up strategy based on the seller experience. So putting yourself in the shoes of the seller, knowing where they are, what their journey is, going from thinking about selling a business to actually getting to the point of a transaction, and setting your follow-up strategy around how to reach out to that seller at each stage, right? And on the right here, let's just remember this little piece, the conversion and advocacy, right? Because in sales follow-up, ideally we can set up some tasks when this seller is in that area. That's when the seller is really thinking about, okay, do I reach out to this person or not, right? And so how to identify that person is at that stage, and then how to set up a sales task for that prospect at that stage, right? That's really important with sales follow-up. So if they get to the point where they're on your website, they're looking at reviews, they're checking out experiences from past business owners who you've worked with, you need to know that, and you need to have sales tasks in place, and that needs to be kind of the first priority for a good sales follow-up strategy. So today we'll go through the typical agenda, brief intro, a couple updates, and then we're going to hop right into adding value, building trust, strategies for that, and then we'll end with a Q&A. But I'm almost thinking of deleting this Q&A because it never happens. I usually wind up pushing this thing to half an hour, even though I'm only supposed to talk for 15 minutes. But we always get great feedback after the fact, so please keep that coming. So brief intro, who am I? Why should you care? I run BN.Digital, that's our agency for off-market deal flow, and BizNexus, that's our platform for auction-based deal flow. But basically, we're playing in the world of deal origination, buying a business, identifying a business to buy or to represent as an intermediary, as an engagement, right? And so that's really all we do. We focus on M&A, we focus on deal origination for intermediaries, for interested parties who are looking at acquiring a business, whether that's a corporate acquirer, family office, private equity, fund sponsor, individual looking for a new gig in this world that we're in. A lot of that this year, expecting more. And our process is really, we see it as a long game, right? So we look at the social selling process for deal origination. What does that mean? It means leveraging everything with social, with data, with internet, everything that you have that's becoming increasingly valuable year over year, and regardless of the platform, right? Whether you're talking about Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or one of these niche sites that pops up, this process is applicable to all of them. And essentially what it is first identifying who your target prospect is, right? Making sure that your online brand, your profile speak to the pain points of that target prospect, and then identifying who the referral prospects are, who can get you that primary prospect over time, building campaigns for each prospect that are hyper specific to them, and then bringing them into your ecosystem, bringing them into your world, getting them into your funnel on an ongoing basis, on a daily basis, making sure that you have outreach to not only your primary prospects, but to your referral prospects, and just building that over time, building your brand, building your reputation, building your brand as a qualified authority in your space over time. 5 stages of social selling. I'm not going to dig into that now, but again, this is reflective of the fact that we see this as a long game, right? Ideally, all of these pistons should be firing at the same time, right? So you're always looking at your targeting. You're always looking at your profile and updating it to make sure that it's speaking to your end prospect. You're always building hyper-specific campaigns for prospects and referral prospects. You're always nurturing, which is the topic of this month. And then you're constantly evaluating your conversion metrics, looking at your capture strategies. Are you getting those meetings? Are you getting the calls? Are you making sure you're identifying those leads when they're in this area that I was just speaking about, the conversion, the advocacy? When they're getting close, do you have a sales task in place, right? Everything that we talk about is designed for that, to get that call, right? To identify the warm prospect, get them offline into a real world engagement, right? So conversation, Zoom, cup of coffee, whatever that is, that can actually lead to business, right? Whether that's buying their business or hopefully having a conversation about their exit plans and getting into a contract, getting to an engagement. So that's that. Updates. We did have some people go through our UI UX project for BizNexus. That was awesome. So just stay tuned. That's the moral of the story. Let's just say by the end of February, we'll have a very updated platform for BizNexus, and we'll let you know when that goes live. And then listings management, that's a service that we've launched that's been going well. So if you are looking to manage your listings, manage your listing postings across platforms, all of those platforms, we have dedicated providers for that. $10 an hour for posting your listings, updating your listings, whatever that hourly is. That's what we've been doing for our clients as an added service. So if you're interested, just ping me on that. And then we've also, we've been doing this for a while now, but we're really implementing this for all of our clients. We are doing phone now as well, but you have to be a client, right? So you have to be on our nurture software to do that. We're not going to do cold sales calls. We like doing calls based on data. So if there's been an email or if they've engaged with your social, or we want to make sure that sales calls are follow-up calls based on data. That's how we do it. So if you are a client, you're interested in that, just let us know and we can set you up. How to access our services: BizNexus, BN.Digital. So again, we are in this nurture and capture space all month, and we're doing that through sales follow-up. Why follow-up? I'm going to start with this slide again this week because it's just something that I feel like I'm saying week over week over week, not just on these lunch and learns, but on all the calls that we have with prospects and with clients, and really just trying to drill home the fact that 99% of the people in this industry are not going to be ready to talk about selling their business on first pass, right? It's just, it will happen if there are health considerations, if there's some sort of family event, if they're having a divorce, if for whatever reason, if you get them right at the perfect time, so you nail the targeting, you nail the campaign, and you happen to get that message to them at the first time, sure, like then they'll be able to have, that's where you'll get a conversation. More likely than not, it's going to be a wasted time conversation because they won't actually be ready at that moment, even if they are ready to have to have a call and to hop on the line. They might not actually be a motivated seller, and they might just be wasting your time. So yes, you want to make sure you have a very good approach for that first hit, for the first approach, making sure you get your value proposition in front of your prospect. But it's really important, it's critical to have a system in place for following up, because you know that, let's just say 99% of the people who you approach will need to be entered into that system. Whatever that system is, you're going to need to stay in front of them. So don't waste your money, don't waste your time on developing campaign outreach, on fixing up your LinkedIn profile, on making the approach and on perfecting the perfect cold call or the perfect cold email if you're not going to have a system in place to roll those prospects over into a nurture funnel. Because prospects in this industry, they might stay in your funnel for years. They might stay in your funnel for 10 years, right? It depends on how long you're in the business and Sellers, this is a once in a lifetime transaction. You need to be aware of that. And you need to build your sales follow-up strategy accordingly. So that being said, let's just get into the tips. So we've got 20 minutes if I'm going to push this, half an hour. I don't think it's going to go that long. I'm just going to go through actionable tips that I see working well for adding value, building trust over the course of the conversation, over the course of the funnel, right? So again, top of the funnel, beginning of the conversation, you're making the approach, you're stating your value proposition, and then you have all this stuff that takes place between that moment and the phone call for a transaction, a conversation about a business valuation, right? A good portion of that conversation that takes place in the middle of the funnel, right, in between first contact and assigned engagement, should be focused on adding value, building trust, establishing you as a qualified authority in the niche of your prospect, right? So let's start with LinkedIn. Using LinkedIn the right way, I think the industry on a whole is much further now today than they were just a year ago. That's been really amazing to watch. And we still see the same problems, but LinkedIn is very valuable in this COVID environment. There are a lot of people online, and it's a great initial channel to build a relationship. It's a great ongoing channel to add value, to nurture a relationship. It's not a great channel for sales. And that's the biggest problem that I see on an ongoing basis on LinkedIn, is people being overly salesy. We've all gotten the automated messages that are 2 paragraphs long from someone you just connected with. It's horrible. You're burning your brand if you do that. So posting, let's just start with that. You want to make sure if you're posting, you can talk about yourself, but let's just say that's 10% of the time, right? So for every 10 posts, that should be putting yourself in the shoes of your prospect and somehow highlighting the prospect pain points, right? Or highlighting something that's relevant to your prospect, not about you, not about your bona fides, but it's about your prospect. Like, show them you're clearly intimately familiar with their pain points, with the intricacies of their world. If it's an HVAC business owner, you talk about the pain points of trying to find an HVAC seller, or how to get your HVAC business ready for sale. I'm not a sell-side intermediary, so I'm not focused on HVAC, so I don't know what exactly the intimate points of that business are. It could just be that there are so many buyers approaching HVAC business owners right now. How do you filter them out, right? If you're an intermediary, well, that's great. You can be the gatekeeper, and you can have a post about how you filter out this myriad of buyers who are all of a sudden interested in HVAC. Some post about that, about why, how to deal with all of these potential quote unquote buyers, how to vet them, how to qualify them. Well, that's something that an intermediary does. A good intermediary, that's why good intermediary is invaluable. So the business owner can focus on running their business, right, on hitting their metrics, while the intermediary is filtering out the good potential buyers from the bad potential buyers, right, identifying who the best buyers are. So a post that highlights that value prop, you're talking about the pain points of your prospect, but you're also talking about, you're clearly showing, hey, you're a solution as well. Posting valuable resources. Let's just jump into LinkedIn, into my feed today. I'm just gonna do this on the fly here. I'm gonna look at my LinkedIn feed and just take a look. Curious about the market, take a look at our business listings, right? I hate to call people out, but that's not effective, right? It's nice every now and then you can check out the listings, but it's not focused. Maybe this prospect, maybe this person, Michelle, is maybe she's engaged with a social selling process, right? And her network is full of people who are very focused on buying businesses, generally speaking. Then this post, I guess, could speak to them, but more than likely it's not something that's going to get a lot of engagement. Raleigh Williams committee is a cul-de-sac down the road, which ideas are lured and quietly strung over. Not really. It's just a conversation. Got a lot of ads, a lot more noise on LinkedIn. But if you're doing this correctly and you're building up a network full of your prospects, then if you're posting correctly, then your message is going to wind up in the top of the feed so that your prospects will see your feed. And we did just have the inauguration, so we're going to have a lot of noise on LinkedIn for that. Marketing advice needed. Asking for help. Yeah. this is going to be a waste of time on a lunch and learn. So generally speaking, if you want a consult for posting, just schedule a meeting with me, schedule a meeting with somebody on my team, and we can go through what you're doing and give you the pros and cons. But you do want to make sure that you're doing that, from your ideal prospects position, right? Engagement, you want to make sure that you're commenting on industry specific content, offering value, get in the groups that are focused on your industry. So estate planning groups, business valuation groups, maybe, wealth management groups, HVAC groups in the case of, if you're looking for an HVAC company, get in those groups and just make sure that you're commenting, so that your profile, your post is going to get boosted when LinkedIn sees you posting. If you're in the group and you're posting in the group, it's going to show your post to the people in that group, whether you're posting in the group or not. The algorithm is going to recognize that. Messages, again, don't be overly salesy on LinkedIn. If you're going to message somebody, try to find overlap on their profile, speak to that, let them know what you do in a message, right? State your value proposition. But if you're going to make a sale, my general recommendation is to get their email, go off channel, like give them a call, send them an email. So that's LinkedIn. Tip 2, reviews and testimonials, where and how. So LinkedIn, again, I've spoken about this in the past, but you want to have at least 3 to 5 customer persona testimonials. What does that mean? Sticking with the HVAC example, ideally you have 3 to 5 HVAC business owners who are singing your praises, right? Even better, if you're an intermediary, are these HVAC business owners where you sold their business and they had a successful experience. That's amazing. That's gold. Because if the seller is, mid-funnel, they've already been vetting you and they know that they're thinking about selling their business, and they land on your LinkedIn profile and they see testimonials from people just like them who had a successful experience and what they're trying to figure out how to do, that's gold. That gets them over the finish line, right? So for everything that we're doing with posting and bringing people into the funnel, when they land on your profile and they're really vetting you and they're taking a close look, if you have those testimonials, that's what's going to get them over the finish line. Very important. We've seen a lot of people adding video testimonials, video interviews in the featured section of your LinkedIn. So in the featured section, again, if you're looking at your profile, the featured section is designed to be large. It's designed to stand out. So you can just plop a good video, a good testimonial right there. Just don't put something that isn't ready for the front page of your LinkedIn, because this is featured for a reason. It gets clicks, it gets conversions, it gets noticed if they're on your profile. So be careful with it, but it is powerful. On your website, video testimonials are also great. And if you do have just copy testimonials, make sure that you have the photo, the name, the location of the person giving the testimonial. Testimonials in 2021 that don't have that are worthless. People assume that they're not real. So the more specific you can get, as long as the user is convinced this is a real testimonial, as it should be, then that's going to provide value. Otherwise it won't, and it can hurt you. Google Business, hopefully anybody who's focused on geographic territory, if you're a brick and mortar broker, if you've got a geographic area, hopefully at this point you've got your Google Business and you've leveraged that, because it's free. It's great for SEO. If you don't have it, go set it up today. But with Google Business replies, if you get a review on Google Business, first of all, be sure to reply, and in the reply, try to highlight your services. Do a little humble brag if you can. That's going to help with SEO significantly. So, if you're a business broker, somebody gives you a review on Google Business, if you can put in keywords like exit planning or business valuation, not awkwardly, but if you can somehow make that fit into your reply, Google does read that. Right. And it does factor into your local SEO for keyword terms. And general tip for Google Business reviews, because with LinkedIn, you have the opportunity to control what goes live on your profile. Google Business, not so much. So if there's a negative review, just general strategy, do a mea culpa. Sorry, you had a bad experience. Let's, please feel free to reach out directly to me. Put in your company phone number. That's it. Don't start a chain. Don't try to engage with anybody on any platform, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn, in a conversation. If there's something negative, you always want to get it offline immediately. Handle that one-on-one. Staying on with tip 2, reviews and testimonials, how to automate this process. I just spoke to this a bit, but automated LinkedIn requests for testimonials. Do not automate. I mean, you can automate a LinkedIn request, right? Do not automate Google. LinkedIn, if you have a nurture software like ours set up, if you have a new client, or if you have someone who you've worked with, you can have a smart mail, you can have an automatic message that goes out that asks for a testimonial on LinkedIn, because ultimately you can approve it. You can ask them to edit it. You have full control. With Google, be very careful, right? You want to send a request to somebody who you know is a raving fan if you're going to leverage a Google business review, right? So you can have a task set up for a new client, right? Or if you're an intermediary, if you have an FA come into your funnel, or a financial advisor come into your funnel, or a lawyer or an accountant, if you're speaking with them and you actually have a call, right? You can have an automated task set up as part of your onboarding process, where do you want to send a smart mail and ask this person for a review, right? So the task is there, and you have to consciously close it out if you don't want a review. But if you do, you basically hit a button, it sends a request for review, and you get a good review on Google. That's how you can scale that up very quickly. And if you do that as a brick and mortar business broker with a geographic territory, you can get a lot of SEO juice from that, right? Because reviews over the past 6 months, that's what Google is looking for. New, fresh reviews that are relevant to your service in your local area. Tip 3, LinkedIn articles. I like these as technical, industry specific, proof, social proof assets, right? So what that means is, let's stay with HVAC again. So if you're an intermediary focused on HVAC, write a very technical article about all of the HVAC buyers out there and how you filter through them, right? Why are there so many HVAC buyers? Why is an HVAC company so attractive? Something that just really establishes, hey, this person knows what they're talking about when it comes to selling an HVAC business, and this article knows why. So it proves why. The article is not something that you lead with. It's a mid-funnel asset, right? So if they've seen your posts and you've already told them what you do, and they're curious and they're taking a closer look, that's where the article really has value, right? And you always want to have your contact info and the call to action on your article, so that if they're at that point, again, in the end zone, so to speak, or close to the end zone, right? If they're at that point where they're vetting you because they know enough about you, they've seen enough social proof that this might be the person who I should engage for the one-time transaction of my life to sell the business that I've been building for the past 30 years. That's where this article has real value. And a nice strategy in outreach as well is to include that article in an outreach email. So if it's an outreach email, instead of just going straight to an ask, your first approach me, hey, this is me, this is what I do, wrote an article on selling HVAC companies. Hopefully is valuable. And then you can follow up with an ask after that, but you can lead with something that has value and clearly establishes you as an authority in your space. Tip 4, leveraging the webinar. I've been saying this for a long time now, but especially this year, I guess in 2020, the webinar, this is a very unique time for this, right? And it's still great. So if you haven't hopped on this train, you still have plenty of time to do it. I don't know where it's going to go once we're all vaccinated, but right now this is a really, really valuable tool, and it helps establish you as an authority in your area, but it also is great because it allows for a soft kind of value focused ask, right? It's genuinely helpful. I mean, if you're putting on a good webinar for your end prospect, hopefully you're really adding value, right? That's what you should always focus on. But this is a great tool to do that because there are benefits for you, clear benefits for you as well, right? So you can lead with a prospect and introduce yourself and invite them to your webinar that's relevant to them. And then as a follow-up after the webinar, whether they attended the webinar or not, you can ask for a phone call, right? You can ask for their feedback. So, leading into a webinar, maybe you invite somebody and then you have a follow-up message saying, hey, are there any questions that I can answer in the Q&A that you'd like to give me in advance of the webinar? Then you have the webinar, and then you can follow up, a few days later and ask how it was, ask for feedback. Can we hop on a call? That's great, right? You've taken the time to give a webinar, to give value, and then you're making an ask for a phone call. And that is extremely effective. It's extremely effective in this environment. I think it's going to continue to be effective. I don't think that's necessarily going to change regardless of where the world goes in 2021. It's just my personal opinion. Tip 5, offer, suggest free content in the middle of the funnel. So content that you want to share, right? Let's say halfway through the funnel. So they know who you are, they've seen your brand, maybe they've seen some social proof, and you want to send an email strategically, send a LinkedIn message strategically, offering value. So a white paper on their space that has clear value, something relevant to 2021, right? This crazy environment that we're in, the buyer's market in 2021, right? Valuations in 2021, something that has value. You can send that as an ebook, even if it's just like a newspaper article that is from a reputable publication, and that helps establish you as somebody who's helpful, if it is actually helpful, and who's in the industry and who knows what they're talking about, whether you wrote it or not. And for me, in my opinion, with our nurture software, you always want to make this a trackable link, a trackable document, a trackable web page. So if you're sharing something, you want to have clear eyeballs on who's viewing that, right? So if you share a Wall Street Journal article, there are ways to just make that a trackable link so you can see who clicked on it, how many times. You can set up sales tasks. If somebody's clicked on that Wall Street Journal article about selling an HVAC company, and you sent that to an HVAC business owner, and you see that that business owner clicked on that Wall Street Journal article about how to sell your HVAC company, if they clicked on that 5 times, well, that should be a sales task. And kind of sneaky way of doing it. But in my opinion, it's just aligning a need with a solution, right? Making a match when that match is needed. So if you can do that well, if you can do it at scale, very, very powerful. Sales follow-up. And I know we're coming up on 1:30. I've got just a couple slides, so I'm just going to push it a couple minutes here. Sales follow-up for strategic emails, not at the top of the funnel, but mid-funnel. It's my opinion you should always have these personalized. So, we have in our funnel software, it's called Smart Mail, but if you're using a CRM, you're going to have something like this, where if you have a prospect, you should be able to quickly send an email. So you have canned emails that are ready to go, like sales emails that you'll use. If someone misses a meeting, I have a missed meeting email. If you have an HVAC white paper and you're going to send it to the HVAC business owner, you should have the canned email ready to go, but then you should have the ability to personalize it. And then, ideally you have first name linked up, you have the meat of the paragraph, the white paper link ready to go, your contact info and all of that, but you personalize the first line, right? Something that clearly shows, hey, this is an email for me. It's not a canned email. It's critically important, in my opinion, for those. If you're at mid to bottom of the funnel, you need to have those emails personalized, and this is a great way to do it, right? So if you're in a CRM, you should have some sort of the equivalent of a Smart Mail. Make sure you get those set up, use them. That's it, right? Don't send a template to an engaged, qualified prospect. Don't risk losing that prospect because they think that you're sending them a piece of spam when they thought, hey, we actually had, not a relationship, but I would have expected a personal email from this person at this point. So don't make that mistake. And tip 8, last tip for today's webinar, feel free to tell prospects that they're not a fit. Right? Disclaimer, my wife hates this. I do it all the time, and she doesn't necessarily agree. Tell people they're not a fit. This is, I work in business acquisition and sales. It's a very niche industry. So I don't want to focus on the transaction as much as the relationship. And, if somebody's not a fit, maybe they'll be a fit next year. And I'm clearly going to tell them why they're not a fit. And if you're an intermediary, especially if you have a business owner come through and they're not ready, don't try to push a transaction, or don't try to push somebody who might not be ready to sell. Don't try to push them into a sell. Just be 100% honest, right? Let them know about your process, and let them know about your value. Let them know about your buyer network, and let them know why they're not ready yet, because they need to do X, Y, and Z. I've just found that if you're honest and you tell people that they're not a fit, that they're not ready for something, maybe they'll come back later, because once they've made the changes that you recommend, they will be a fit and they'll remember that. And then oftentimes what I see is I'll wind up getting referrals, right? Because people realize like, hey, this is somebody who I want to do business with. I'm not ready, but they didn't try to push it. And that's rare in today's environment. So I'm going to keep that top of mind and I'm going to refer some business to this person. If you can do it, I just think it's a better way to do business. You wind up working with people who you want to work with. And I think it's the long game. That's my style. That's what I like. It's not a fit for everybody, but just giving my personal recommendation for what it's worth, whether that's valuable or worthless. But that is today's webinar. So if you guys have any questions, now is the time to ask. If not, let's do what we always do. We'll send the request for feedback. You'll get that today. And I think tomorrow it's just an automated message. Really, really helpful when you guys offer feedback so we can continue to shape these things in a way that is valuable for you. I've always said since day one, if these things aren't valuable, if we're not getting good feedback, we're going to kill it, right? I don't want to spend this time if it's not valuable. So far, it's been really, really helpful for me to go through this and remind myself on a weekly basis and to be able to engage in the conversations that we typically have between webinars with people who reach out. So as long as that's valuable, we're going to keep doing it. So please offer feedback. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next week.